Hi, I'm Dr. Alex Loyd, and I'm here this morning for a few minutes with a new but dear friend of mine, Mrs. Rene Sproles. And I met Rene. Rene, was it a year ago, year and a half ago, something like
Year
that?
and a half in the spring. Yeah.
Okay, I met her about a year and a half ago. We were both in a nonprofit group with the healing codes, and at that time Rene was new to the healing codes, and she had really good results. She can tell you about that if she wants to. But anyway, we're here this morning to talk a few minutes about belief mapping. I need to, I'm not sure how to say this, Rene, but you are a very unusual person in my experience. You are incredibly open to the truth and to something that maybe works better than something else. You're not a skeptic. You're not a shoot things down person. You're a let's work together and find something that helps everybody and do it together. Okay. Rene was one of the most vocal of that group, probably reported the best results of that group. And I think she's given away like 100 healing code books now. She just keeps buying them and giving them away. And, I need to try to find a way to get her a half price discount or something, but the publisher owns it. I don't. But anyway, she is an absolutely delightful person, and a different person in a good way, I think people who spend some time around Rene, you're always at first, okay, what's this person going to be like? And so you're being friendly, but you're also maybe sort of holding back a little bit. Rene is a person that people, in my experience, feel comfortable with very quickly, and feel like, I'm so glad I found this person. And I don't want to let go of this person. And that's how I felt too, mainly spiritually. I think I connected with Rene spiritually, and it was wonderful for me. So Rene, thank you so much for agreeing to do this, and welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for those kind words. It's such an honor. It's such a blessing to hear someone's perspective on you, and how you see me. That's really beautiful. And that is a work that God has been doing for many years in my life. I would say I was not characterized by being approachable for most of my life. I had a very high spirit of judgment towards myself mostly, but also towards others. And even though he'd been doing that work in my life, the healing codes, it just took it like so much further. I called it like counseling on steroids, or like I'm a child of the 70s, so the bionic woman. I'm like, it's like bionic counseling. Because what you could do with the healing codes in just one session, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, was so much more work and so much more effective. And so, yeah, and I've got to tell you, I do have the gift of belief. God made me that way. I always will just believe you until I have no reason to anymore, and the gift of faith. So, but I was not really wanting to go to that group. And I went because I wanted to be a good friend to someone I thought needed to be in that group.
Yeah.
And the second we did this, I was like, whoa, there's something there. Oh my goodness. And then, yes, it just took off from there. And it has been such a blessing in my life. So I'm excited to have this conversation.
And those of you who are watching this, you need to know Rene is a mover shaker. She has written books that have been published and done very well. She travels even to lecture about those books that she and a dear friend of hers have written, I think a lot of them together. She has a regular podcast. What's the name of your podcast again?
Yeah. It's Just Ask Your Mom. My dear friend Bonnie and I, we raised our kids together, and it's just for those people who need a motherly ear and some motherly advice. So we say we've lived life, made mistakes, and learned some lessons, and we're
And
here to share.
it's fantastic. And they even lowered their standards to have me on there one time. Okay, Rene, I think you know the basic story behind belief mapping. It's something that I developed over 30 years ago in ministry. I thought it should work for every person. It didn't. About a year ago, I started contacting people because I still believed it should work, and found a missing piece. And when I put in that missing piece, there have been 242 people in a row without a single failure that have reported significant to dramatic improvement. And the crazy thing to me is belief mapping really in and of itself isn't really an intervention, so to speak. It's not the thing that's supposed to get rid of the problem. It just kind of brings all the problem together in one place so that you can deal with it easily and not miss any pieces or anything. So can you just share what is your opinion of belief mapping, your experience, anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I am at heart, I always desire to be a good student. So even though when you sent us these templates where we could print them out, I was like, oh man, I don't want to do that. I like just sitting with the Lord and let's just sit and do this. But I was like, nope, we're going to try it because that's what Alex is suggesting. And so I did it with LT3. Now, you had told me about it maybe a month or two before that, and I had just been lazy about it and not done it. So with this class, that gave me the discipline. I'm not going to show up without my homework done.
Right.
So I know that about myself. And so it gave me the discipline to do it. And the one week that really struck me was the relationships week when we were doing belief mapping. So you're supposed to put the issue you're dealing with in the center, and then whatever comes to mind on the spokes.
Yeah.
And my general routine is to just sit with the Lord, ask the Holy Spirit, show me the truth. You're right. I love the truth.
Yeah.
I love the truth, even though you kind of cringe a little bit when you're sitting there waiting for it. And I understand that. Like, I have spent a lot of my life being busy to avoid sitting still and listening to the truth. But in my experience, God is so gentle. He's never ripped my heart open and showed me the depths of the work that needs to be done. He's just very gentle with it. So going into it with that perspective, when I started doing relationships, it was relationships with others, relationship with yourself, and relationship with God. And immediately a situation came to mind when I had been working for a church. My kids were teenagers. We homeschooled, but I was able to work flexibly with the church. And I had left that position after 5 years amicably. I mean, there was no big blow up or a problem of any kind, but that bubbled straight to the top. And I filled out like an entire one of these for that one situation.
Yeah.
The relationships with people there and just things that were kind of left undone in my spirit. So that was a big surprise. And I thought, well, we need to get that healed up. And then I said, okay, but let's just keep going here. Let's just fill them all out. And I've been doing a lot of work before I knew about healing codes on relationships with others. Just trying to, if God says call that person and make things right, or see if something's off, you feel it, something's off, just call. So I've been practicing that and practicing forgiveness with like the big rocks, in my life, but all these little pebbles came up, all these small relationships. So that relationship one was filled with people. And then the one for myself, I thought, well, no, I love myself. I'm good. Totally full. Totally full. And then when you muscle tested me to gauge what rating you were reading, it was right. I mean, it was accurate to how I was feeling about myself. And I thought, I'm really carrying around this much self-judgment and resentment against myself. I was appalled. And then the one with God, I was like, Alex, I think I might be blocked. I can't fill that one out. But lo and behold, you said no, like I think you're good with God. So you always say, do what's the biggest thing first. And really, to me, it was so alarming, the one with myself. That's the one I went after.
Okay.
And there's a lot of shame there. You know, when you write down the things you don't like about yourself, whether it's physical things or personality or mistakes you've made. But I wrote them down. They're on here, and you can see all the little numbers as they're changing. So I write them down, and I just sit with the Lord and think about these things, and think about how he views me versus how I view myself, and just trying to release the judgment, forgive myself, release the judgment as I do the code, and then re-rate. And so it's been very helpful to put a number. You have us rate it -10 to +10. It's been helpful to put a number to see kind of my progress. I'm still not done with the self one. I'm still working on it, but I'm getting there, and I appreciate the truth. I don't want to live in lies. I don't want to live with judgment or resentment. I want to live in freedom and in love.
Right.
And this is a very helpful tool. It's so simple. I was talking with a friend this past week. She lost her son horrifically, tragically, adult son, last year. And Christmas is really hard.
Yeah.
Christmas is really hard. And I was able in 5 minutes, just in that casual conversation, to explain what belief mapping is and say, you got to get it after this. I really think that's going to be a helpful part of healing for you, because I've already given her the Healing Codes book. Yeah. We've already talked about that. Okay. As you said. So that's kind of my big picture of belief mapping. I really appreciate it. It's simple. You can, once you've filled it up with chicken scratch and everything, just start a fresh one, print another one and start again, and get down to the bottom of it. So that's my first impressions, belief mapping.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I've heard one thing you've said, I've heard from virtually everyone. And that is, when I started mapping my issue, I started having things come up that I would not have thought of. And you're saying that happened for you as well.
Totally surprising. As someone who really seeks to do the work personally, to be the best version God made me to be, the best version of myself he intends for me to be, I was shocked at all the little things hiding that just came right to the surface with this tool.
And when you work on it, the belief mapping is kind of getting it all together, all the, as you say, the big rocks and the little pebbles, all of it, the sand even.
Yes.
But as you work on it, have your numbers been getting better?
Oh, yes. Every time. That's the encouraging thing. Sometimes they'll drop. I've got my notes in front of me so I could tell you exactly, but sometimes they'll drop like 1 or 2 points, but sometimes I'll bump 4 or 5 points.
Yeah.
Just in one session. And so, and maybe they'll creep back up and I'll come back to it. But they're coming down. I mean, God's intention is for us to heal. His desire is for us to be healed. And so I just feel like this is cooperating in that process in a really effective way.
Okay. Last question. There's going to be people watching this that don't know me from a telephone pole, that don't know you. Money is really tight for most people right now at the time in the world, at the time that we're talking, in the fall of 2023. And so I totally understand someone being skeptical about, someone else talking about some miracle thing that costs money, and then I get it and it disappoints me. My last thing is, could you just speak directly, not to me, but to someone who's watching this, who's in pain, who's struggling in their life, and who's trying to figure out, is this real or not? Is this worth it for me or not? Should I try this? What would you say to them?
Well, I would say that in the West, so Europe and United States, Canada, We have a very truncated view of who we are as humans. And, when our body is feeling bad, we go to the doctor, but we don't really address our spirit or our soul. So we're body, soul, spirit beings.
Yeah.
And in my 52 years, what I am learning is that just going to the doctor for medicine is not the whole picture. It's not enough, because when this body dies, we're still us. We're still, our soul and spirit is still there. And so to me, that's the root of the issue. And so we're treating symptoms many, many times. And this kind of work, the healing codes, this energy work, this belief mapping, it is treating the source. And it's getting to the core of the issue. And a lot of times, many symptoms that you're having will follow. I mean, you know that better than I do. You've seen people heal from crazy things that the world says that's not possible. So to me, I told you this from the beginning. It's right. This is right. It's just that I can't explain it. This is just right. It's, I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of cost to it, but what is it worth to you to be whole? What is it worth to you to have freedom from lies, from addictions, from hurts? What is it worth to you to be free? I mean, that's it. In the end, what's it worth to be free? I think of it like when we were raising our two kids, and we wanted to send them to like a worldview training camp, summit, or Impact 360. It's a couple $1,000s to go to that. And I talked to a lot of friends, good people, parents who are wanting to, do the right thing by their children and raise them well. And I would say, hey, would your child like to join our children? And they were like, $2,000. Like, that's a lot. And I'm like, but you pay thousands of dollars for softball.
Yeah.
You go to Disney World. Like, this is like investing in your child's being, in their body, soul, and spirit. Isn't it worth it to not go to Disney World and do this instead? And a lot of people couldn't get there. So I would just say, ask yourself, like, do you want to be well?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, count the cost. And I firmly believe God will make a way, because he wants you to be well.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought up kids, because it's been fascinating to me. Since I started doing all this about 30 years ago, the great majority of the people who've come to us have been over 45, people with health issues. But in the last 5 years, we're starting to have a lot of young people come. And Rene, the teenagers and college age people who do belief mapping, their results are like twice as fast as us old folks. It's
because
incredible.
they have half as much life under their belt.
Yeah. And so a kid who's struggling with, something at school or stress, or there's just too many stressors on me. I've got anxiety. I'm struggling. For your child, for a teenager or someone in college, to be able to spend 20 or 30 minutes and then feel dramatically better from then on is, I really wish I'd had this when my kids were growing up, but you better believe they're doing it now.
I know. My kids were the first ones. I was like, read this book. They're in their 20s. I work with a lot of 20 and 30-year-old people, a lot. And I see that too, Alex. I see how quickly they're able to heal. But many of them are carrying generational baggage into their lives. And I'm just their cheerleader, saying, lay that stuff down, lay it down. And this is an integral part of that. I've done counseling, traditional counseling, I got some good results from that. But just talking about your problems over and over and over again makes you focus on your problems. And she helped, my counselor helped me find some lies I was believing. But this, like I said, it's a fraction of the cost of that kind of avenue. And so I applaud that. I'm doing it with my granddaughter. She watches me do it and she doesn't really know what it is. She's only 2, but you better believe we're going to integrate it as we go along, and her parents as well.
All right. Well, Rene, I love you. God bless you. Thank you so much for doing this. And thank you for being one of my favorite new friends.
Same. Thank you so much.
All right. God bless and have a
Thank you.
wonderful day, and give your
All
husband a hug or a poke for me.
Will do.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.